it's Green Dragon here, aka Kirsten, aka I think I meant to say Kirsten from the OneRing.net, and I am very excited to be joined today by the very lovely Stephen Hunter, all the way from the other side of the world in Australia. How are you, Stephen?
Very good. Sorry, I'm just turning my aircon off. It's just getting a little bit chilly.
Freezing. I'm up in Maine at the moment, and it's a land of snow and ice right now. So we're at almost polar opposites right now.
Yeah. Well, my neighbours, I've got some Canadian neighbours. We're kind of the outlaws on the street. I'm a Kiwi and they're Canadian. They've just come back from Calgary and it's into the weather. It's not super hot in Sydney. It's like about 30 degrees. And I was reading yesterday that it's been about 300 and something days or 400 days since we've had a day over 30, which is quite unheard of in Australia. But it's pretty nice. You know, been over the east to the beach and had some swims and stuff like that.
Me jealous.
It is nice. It's not too bad.
It was really nice to connect with you, Stephen, and to catch up. I cannot believe it's been basically a decade since the first of the Hobbit movies came out in theaters in December, the December just gone. My Facebook feed was popping up with memories about press events that I'd been at, red carpet events that I was lucky enough to be at. And where has the time gone?
I know, it's crazy. And my daughter was like, she wasn't even born when I had my first wardrobe fitting for The Hobbit. And I remember when we had the first big event, the red carpet, they had all these like red scarves on the floor, and they did their own little red carpet while I was in Wellington. And that was like massive. And of course, when we did that, we still had the other movies to complete.
Right.
And at that stage, we only thought there were going to be 2 movies. So that was, it's great. But I know, like with my Instagram stuff, I do Throwback Thursdays, and I've just been going back, and I've just started to post this great cycle ride that myself and McTavish went on when we were in Middlemarch in Central Otago. So it's all that kind of stuff that, you know, it just keeps it alive. It's and you're right, it's time just flies.
So Graham McTavish seems to be all about doing journeys with co-stars. I know his trip around Scotland has been very popular, with Sam Heughan doing their Outlander bit.
The Outlander. That was so funny watching, because especially the first episode, all about food. And it was so funny. And I wondered how many people were thinking that they were playing up to that, but that's exactly what he's like. Like, he doesn't share food. And if you try and take some of his food, the reaction, I mean, you almost try and take his food to try and get that reaction. But yeah, it's brilliant. And the thing I loved most about that was it just took me back to when we were on location and when we were working together, just seeing that Graham, you know, who I haven't seen for a little while.
So when were you trekking together on bikes?
That was around the whole time of the infamous Scene 88. We're in Central Otago, running from I think the Wags, the Imaginary, whoever. We did so much running, and I remember at one stage Jed and I, we were running, and then we realized that we were the only 2 cast members still running, and all the rest were stunties. And we're like, how do we end up with this? But that was an amazing time. And Jed and I were actually staying in the same house, and the guy was the former like boss of the Otago Rugby Union, which is a very famous, you know, rugby union in New Zealand. And we stayed, and we were like, you know, hey, we should do a bike ride, because it's an amazing bike ride, and it's all, you know, it's basically the Gold Mine Trail, an old railway that's been taken up. And the guy's like, it's all downhill. It wasn't all downhill at all. And of course, the thing we didn't consider is that, well, if it's all downhill, then coming back is going to be all uphill. But anyway, and I think Eric Sandon was the other guy who was with us. He was the VFX guy. And there was one of the guys from Ain't It Cool who was there as well, who we thought we'd lost. We thought he'd perished on the way. It was pretty, and Terry Notary as well. Yeah. So Terry, no Terry, it was, as we used to call him, which was a Kiwi thing. So yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Wow, that's good memories. And have you had a chance to catch up with any of the guys in recent times? I know everyone's scattered. I see that Adam Brown and Sir Ian have been doing Panto together, are doing Panto together
Yeah.
at the moment.
Oh, I'm so happy, and I'm so happy Adam's doing a lot on stage because he's just such a talented man. I haven't. I sent a video off for his 40th birthday. I remember I did that. But I haven't seen Adam. I think the last time I saw Adam was, I think 2017 was when I went to London. It was for a premiere of this little sci-fi movie I did called Blue World Order. And I ended up catching up with Jimmy and stayed the night with Jimmy, who cooked me breakfast. And then I was meeting Adam that morning when we were catching up for breakfast. And I felt bad that I didn't want to say I'd already had breakfast. So I just ended up eating 2 breakfasts, which I kind of thought was appropriate.
That's a very Middle Earth thing to do.
It totally is. And actually on that same trip, because Sylvester came and saw the film as well, which was fantastic. And I remember walking out of the cinema, he's like, it was quite good. I was worried it was going to be shit. And and I saw him, and then he goes, why don't you come and, have lunch and visit? Because I was heading out to Heathrow to fly home that night about 10 o'clock. And so I ended up doing this amazing walking pub crawl with Sylvester McCoy all around Hampstead Heath, because he lives out that area. And we went we had lunch at the Spaniards Inn. We went to the Holly Bush. We went to some other pub in Hampstead somewhere. And of course, he knows everyone and knows everything. And he's like, that was where Keats's house there. Get a photo there. And that's George Orwell lived there when he wrote 1984. And he goes, oh, John Hurt used to live in that little apartment there. And he was a demon. And we must have hit about 5 or 6 pubs, like walking. And the sight of seeing Sylvester McCoy with his cane walking over a creek of branches, like I'll never forget it. It was pretty good. So I think that was probably the last time I might have seen them. I know Adam's been here for some conventions. Every time Graham does like Supernova in Australia, I always just jump on board. I just basically ride off his coattails and we get double photos and always make more money because he's there. He was filming Preacher. So I went to see him in Melbourne. I went to do a convention with Adam in Melbourne as well. And yeah, I think the last time Graham was there, I think Nolan North was there as well. So I've seen them, and of course I saw Jimmy back in the day. I think now Mark Hadlow and Jed Brophy did a little short film called Blue Moon or something a couple of years ago. This is before the pandemic, and they came to Sydney, and I ended up picking them up from where they were staying and doing I usually did this tour when people come to Sydney. So when you come to Sydney, I'll do this with you, and we basically drive around all the beaches on the eastern suburbs. And honestly, it was just like we were working together the week before, the bickering and the giggling and the teasing and but I obviously haven't seen anyone for a wee while. I know Graham was meant to have a 60th birthday party in New Zealand a couple of years ago, but that, of course, that was 2020, I think.
A couple of years ago. Let's not admit this. Like, what?
Yeah, about 10 years. He's 75, obviously. He looks very good. He looks very good for his age.
He does well.
Yes. So that put the kibosh on a few things. I was in New Zealand in October. I was meant to catch up with Dean, but he had some things on and he never made it down to my mum's place. But so we're all there or thereabouts. We're probably due a bit of a Zoom call, although everyone's pretty over Zoom after the last 3 years. But right. I do all my business via Zoom still. I keep doing it. I can stay at home. I just have to keep my room tidy or come up with a suitable background.
It's incredible, really. As you say, we're all a bit tired of it. On the other hand, it's amazing that it enables us to do things like this. When we were doing press, when the One Ring was doing stuff originally for Lord of the Rings, there was no option for this kind of thing. And even 10 years ago with The Hobbit, we didn't really have these same kind of options. I remember doing a phone interview with Richard Armitage at one point early on in the process, and it was all a bit like, oh, is this going to work? Are we properly connected? And now, although we're tired of it, it is kind of amazing that we're able to just connect and chat and catch up like this.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that we've discovered that we can actually do without flying over the other side of the world, or spending all this money on I don't know. That's why the transport industry is. There's been so many delays and with staff shortages because they're just trying to work out. I assume I don't know anything about the transport industry, but things have changed. For myself, I'm an acting coach, and I still catch up with people, and they come to me and I shoot stuff. I'm shooting an audition, and that's my screen, basically my wardrobe today for myself. But pretty much everything I do, I started doing remote stuff, and now I'm continuing to do it because everyone's back in classes, and they go and they get to a group and they do all that stuff, which I think as an actor is vitally important, but it's not what I do. I do something, I've kind of created a point of difference for what I do. So I'm more like a coach and a mentor, kind of like a personal trainer sort of person, but you still got to get yourself to the gym, So yeah, I'm just continuing doing everything online, and like now I've got an app, which isn't quite native yet, but yeah, everything's like accessible on your phone. And and I think now there's so many industries where we've realized that's all we need to do. And once you focus on what you actually need to get from it, then the delivery is it's like it'll never be the same. Like I know people on my street now who they're working maybe 2-3 days a week in the office, and they'll never go back to 5 days because they got to hang out with their kids every day.
Yeah. So talking about doing things online, and you were mentioning before sharing some images looking back to this epic bike journey you did with Graham McTavish, etc. I know you had some issues lately, so tell us how people can find you online, and that it really is you, because you lost a couple of your accounts recently, right? Yeah,
well, I got hacked through Facebook, and because everything was connected, I basically had my Facebook pages are still there, but I can't access them, so I've had to create new ones. My Instagram got disabled because that was connected as well, and that's just how things go. People hack, and there's millions and millions of users, and it's just, I guess, too much hassle for them to reinstate them. So that was an interesting process trying to figure out the lack of support there, but I just started again. And so what I've done, I've actually combined, because I'm Stephen Hunter actor. And now, it's been 10 years, and most of my business, I'm still doing a lot of acting jobs, but is through my business, the Actors Coach. So I've now created Stephen Hunter Actor Coach on Instagram. And so that's my main handle. It says Stephen Hunter Official. I'm pretty sure there's no other. I'm not important enough for people to kind of copy. So, and if anyone had my old handle, which was Stephen J Hunter 1, that's gone now. So I'm kind of combining. So like, it's good. And sometimes a reset, looking at how you do things, you get this kind of stuff happens, you get the spanner in the works, and it's really how you bounce back. So I'm kind of consolidated. I've got a new website that's just almost finished now. I've found this amazing designer in Brisbane who's just incredible. And I'm just sort of pressing on, otherwise you just get angry and you got the same result.
No, right, exactly. And there's no point in getting angry at faceless media and the metaverse that we all have to deal with. So your Instagram is the best place for people who want to follow you, the Stephen Hunter Actor Coach. Yeah, Stephen Hunter Actor Coach, and also I'm Stephen Hunter the Actors Coach on Facebook. So that's the other one that they can find me on. Stephen Hunter Stephen Hunter the Actors Coach, on Facebook. So that's the other one. But I think Instagram's probably the one I use mostly, purely because I'm working with a lot of younger actors, and that's kind of the one that they use. And I know the engagement levels is pretty high on it. So it's kind of turned from that kind of, how many followers have I got, and like, you do it even as an actor, you do it, but you're not too sure where the fine line between ego and actually benefit to your to your career is. But now with my coaching, it's definite. It's something that's really, really good. I do reels, and I still do my throwbacks for all the Hobbit stuff because people seem to be still interested in that. So I'll keep posting that. Absolutely, they are, and I see you have some cool pictures behind you there. And yes. Now I can swing. You can see that there's me kind of hiding. Of course, that's the Aquaman. We did a few conventions. That was a show we did
Jed came to where my daughter decided we're all going to dress up as bumblebees. Who was I to deny her that? John Cullen being himself, Adam Brown, of course. Me and Dean, one of my favorite photos. And of course, these are the days where we probably last caught up was at HobbitCon.
Nice.
Sylvester McCoy. And this one here, that's of course the lovely Jane Seymour. And I did a film with her in 2020 called Ruby's Choice.
I was going to say just recently, right?
Yeah, 2020. It was pretty amazing.
How was that? She's amazing. She's just.
Well, there's my there's a big cast photo.
Oh, nice.
And that's a film I did with a guy called who wrote by Jordan Waller, who's done a bit of work. I think he might have worked on The Finest Hour, and it's called Two Heads Creek. There's this comedy thing. Oh, and there's one of my best fans sent me like a Star Wars cuckoo clock. Yeah, but Jane was incredible. Like Jane's probably still one of the busiest actors in Hollywood. She's doing a remarkable amount of work. She flew to Australia. She did the 2-week isolation in a hotel with no balcony. So she was a total trooper. I learned so much from her. And she learned quite a bit about Australian and New Zealand wine from me, because I always made sure that she had something nice to drink at the end of the day.
Excellent. I have to ask you, we've talked a little bit about 10 years ago and The Hobbit and Reminiscing. Have you been watching Rings of Power, the latest excursion into Middle Earth?
Oh, yes, I have. And I absolutely loved it. I wasn't sure, because obviously I think we went through this with The Hobbit as well. And something that you're very aware of if you're venturing into this world is that you're basically messing with something that people almost have ownership over. And they've got a very clear idea of how it should be and how it shouldn't be. And I think we're very lucky, with The Hobbit, that Pete ended up doing them, and they did look the way they did. But it was still different, because The Hobbit was kind of a funny thing where I guess it was kind of written like a children's book when it first was written, but then he was going to rewrite it. Something I learned from Stephen Colbert, who was like the biggest Tolkien nerd I've ever met. And so there was a lot of comparisons, and I think Rings of Power is going through the same. Everyone's got ownership. Everyone thinks, Game of Thrones had the same thing. Everyone's got an idea of how it should go. But personally, I just loved it. And I loved their interpretation. I like the darkness. I think movies, and this is just general, like you've got to cut to the chase. And of course, Pete's movies, they're quite cinematic. I wouldn't say cheesy, but they're, there's a sort of certain way about them. And I find just generally with TV, with long form television, people talk about slow. It's like, well, that's one episode is kind of like the start. It's just the prologue. You get so much time to learn about characters. I think that for myself, who's a fan of Tolkien's work, there was so many things that it filled in the gaps. I like the darkness. I really enjoyed it. I thought the performances were amazing. And I love the dwarves, especially. I just thought they were extraordinary and such, such lightness and such personality. So, I guess everyone's got their own opinion on it, but as someone who's kind of been in that world, but also as a fan, I really enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to the next season.
And it's interesting what you're saying, the comparison between film and cinematography and then television, because we've seen that in the Star Wars universe as well. When you think about something like Obi-Wan, where you're just sort of, in a way, not that there wasn't action and everything, but you're kind of meandering through a story where you get a deeper look at one character in one episode in his life played out over several hours. It's just a totally different pacing and ability to look at things in a different way than you can when you've got to get through the whole plot in 4 hours if you're Peter Jackson, but 2 hours for most men.
and I guess the brief is people like Amazon have spent like squillions on the rights is to create an entertaining show. It's something that's going to keep people coming back and watching it and entertaining. Then it's to serve the fans, it's to serve the story, and things like that. I guess, with Obi-Wan, there's a lot of stuff there that you find out, and then people might debate about the plot or how exciting it was. But for me, who's a fan, I mean, like I'm a guy that should be in every test screening because I loved all the Star Wars movies. I mean, I get the prequels, right? But all the new ones I really loved. I loved Obi-Wan. I actually think Andor was probably one of the best things I've seen on TV this year. And that's a whole different, such great experienced British cast in that. It's kind of like on a Cold War spy thriller kind of vibe to it as well. But yeah, I don't try and break it down. I mean, you watch something, you either want to keep watching it or you don't.
Yep.
And I think it's quite personal. And obviously they want more people to keep watching than not. So yeah.
And the dwarves, I would say, as a fellow dwarf actor, the dwarves are the thing seems to be most universally loved in Rings of Power. People have, obviously, as you say, their different opinions, different likes, dislikes, but I haven't heard anyone not love the way that Khazad-dûm has been portrayed and the great job that Owain and Sophia are doing as Durin and Disa, and so do you enjoy getting to see another part of sort of the history of that your character came from, really? It's
totally. And Peter Mullen, who's like, my gosh, I mean, that voice is just, I just kill for that voice. He's extraordinary, and he's extraordinary in everything that he's in. He was, of course, Westworld, and like just an incredible actor. But I mean, to me, the heart of it and what really works is it's a story about succession, and it's a story about the relationship about the father and son, and of course, the dwarves and all that. But it's, I just think there's so much to it, and of course, his relationship with the elves and with Elrond, and I just think from a story point of view and from a character point of view, it was really nice to watch, and there was just he had so many dimensions to him. He was wanting to be his father's son, but he also had his own point of view, and you can relate that to any story, really.
Yeah.
No, well done them.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing season 2. I'm hoping I might even get a chance to visit the set, but I'm just putting that out there in case anyone from Amazon PR watches this.
Yes, she's house trained. She's house trained. She's very polite, and she'll serve the show very well. I guarantee it.
From my parents' house, so
Wow.
It's easy.
Yeah. Well, I auditioned for that. I auditioned for. I'm not even too sure what role it was, but obviously one of the men folk at one point. Because that's when it was filming in New Zealand, so I put down a tape for that. But obviously, it didn't go any further. So yeah. Anyway.
Alas.
Nah.
So what's coming up this year for you? Have you got any conventions lined up? Are you likely to be reconnecting with any of your fellow Hobbit cast and crew?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I tend not to go away too many times for conventions. I mean, I haven't been able to, but because the acting work's been pretty solid, I kind of want to be around. And pretty much most of my work over the last 2 years has been in Sydney. 2020, 2021, there was a lot of US productions. I did a movie called, it was the new The Children of the Corn, produced by Lucas Foster, who did Ford versus Ferrari and most recently Morbius, which still hasn't been released. I have no idea when that's meant to be coming out, but that's on its way. Ruby's Choice, I think it's in cinemas in the States and maybe the UK. I'm not too sure where that's at. I'm sure it'll be on a streaming service, hopefully this year as well. I did a show for the ABC in Australia called The Messenger, which is on air in May, which is really good. And we're filming season 2 of Heartbreak High, which just exploded worldwide on Netflix. So yeah, I mean, I haven't officially been asked back yet, but from conversations informally I've had, it sounds like they're quite interested in my character. I play a basketball coach, obviously. But that was fun. That was fun to be part of. And it was fun to see how it just took off, and the kids who are in that are just, they're on their way. That they were extraordinary. I remember going to the premiere of it. It was like a good old fashioned party at the town hall in Paddington in Sydney, and there was a red carpet, and I got to do an interview, and all the crew. I don't know if you ever saw the old Heartbreak High, but there was a one back in the 80s, and all the old cast were there. And I remember the guy asking me, he goes, "So what's it like to be back?" And I'm like, "Oh, actually, no, I'm not part of the original cast. I'm one of the new old guys." So hopefully that continues, and I guess I'll know more about that within the next month, whether I'm going to have another crack on that. But that was a fun project to be involved in, and yeah, there seems to be work. Of course, Fox Studios in Australia now are officially Disney Studios, so there's a lot of stuff happening there, and of course with Disney Plus. And there's been a lot of noises made. I don't know whether it's law officially yet, but I'm not too sure if you have it in the UK. But here there's like quotas, like all the free-to-air channels. There has to be a certain percentage of local content. So all the main channels in Australia, they need to have like 20% or whatever the quota is of Australian content, and that's going to be rolled out to the streaming services, which means there's going to be a lot more local content made in Australia. So my goal is to, keep going with my business, the Actors Coach, and to work pretty much exclusively in Australia. Maybe get the odd trip away, a few nights in Adelaide or Brisbane or even New Zealand would be quite nice, just for a bit of a change of scene. But yeah, I think being close to home is good. But there's a bit coming up.
Nice. Well, we're hoping that we might be doing something, the OneRing.net, at the end of this year for the 20th anniversary of the release of Return of the King. And we've been talking about doing that. We were going to do something for the 20th of the release of Fellowship, and of course COVID. So, but we're hoping to arrange some kind of trip to New Zealand and have people there. So we'll be able to persuade you to come over and join us in New Zealand.
Oh, I'm sure that's not too hard. That would be fantastic.
Nice. I have to ask you, what's the little picture in the frame? You showed us the pictures on the wall, but you've got
this one.
There, a little picture in a frame.
That one or the one in the back?
No, the one that you're just pointing at with your left hand.
That one there.
Yeah.
Because that's the big Bombur photo there. And that was some of the guys on we did a trip at Milford Sound.
Nice.
Actually, while we're taking photos, I'm going to show you this. Gee.
Frame as well for that one. It's a beautiful frame.
That needs dusting. This is something that we got given to us.
Oh, look at that.
I'm going to have to dust that. I've got like layers and layers of dust that have just come off on my hands. So we all got given those, and we got given the pictures. And while we're here, I better get my oops. Not breaking anything. That would be,
you definitely don't break anything. Oh wow, yeah, okay, definitely this has to come out.
I'm glad I took that down, because now I can give it a good dusting.
I love the artwork around in the mount, in the surround for that. It's stunning.
Yeah, I think that's all like a lot of concept art that they used.
I'm sure.
We got the ladle.
Nice.
This also features in any cameos that I do. If people want a cameo, I always make sure I bring out the ladle. It's quite heavy. And these just kind of sit around. I show, because it's funny with the Hobbit, it's because people don't really recognize you in public. But people who are fans, when they find out, it's amazing how many fans are out there, like in the neighborhood. And I got given this, which is
oh wow.
So and you can see the detail on that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like bone. It's kind of meant to be bone, and it's a proper leather over wood.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Obviously the craftsmanship with this is just extraordinary. So yeah, and I've got one of these, my little Bombur Lego figure as well. That was the very first Bombur Lego figure that we got given when we wrapped the movie. I think that's his bottom. I think his bottom should be brown. It seems to be black, but over the years he's probably been mixed up with Lego Friends and Harry Potter Lego. So he's probably got Snape's bottom. But anyway.
Half Snape, half Bombur.
Yes. Because I've obviously, I don't know if you can see at the back, there's a Millennium Falcon there, there's a AT-AT, there's a Yoda, and I've got this little, because when my daughter was getting to Harry Potter Lego, I started to get into Star Wars Lego, because and you can see my hat, obviously, Tatooine National Park. That's kind of my little, that's my little, that's my fan zone.
Nice. Yeah, the Lego stuff is very cool. I have a bunch, and my nephew started getting into it, and I was like, hooray, now I have an excuse to get more. So
yeah,
your own Lego figure, I mean, that is pretty spectacular.
Oh, and this
nice.
The lightsaber, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's the silver fern, New Zealand.
Yeah.
R is like the Bombur in Dwarvish,
Yeah.
and that down below is the Hunter, the Hunter clan. Is a slogan, or the motto. And it's actually been in ruins in Dwarvish. So it's been translated in Dwarvish.
That's amazing. Who made that for you? That's extraordinary.
Well, these guys, Sons of Obi-Wan. It's actually, I met these guys at a convention with Jed, because they gave him a T-shirt. And I was like, I want a T-shirt. And I figured out they gave me a T-shirt, and they do training. They do lightsaber, basically fight training. You can fight with those. And they work with a lot of disadvantaged youth up in the Central Coast, which is just north of Sydney, and they do a lot of amazing work. And of course, they go to all the conventions. And yeah, just recently they gave me like an honorary member, and they did a shirt for me as well for Bombur. I've got another one, a green one, which has got Tim Morrison as Boba Fett as well. So
wow, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, all the gears, all the stuff.
It's so nice talking to you. I cannot believe it's been 10 years since, well, more than that, since you started filming, but 10 years since the first movie came out. All the milestones that will come up over the next couple of years of guys going back to do pickups and the next release and even more mind-blowing that it's 20 years since the Lord of the Rings movies.
I know.
We're all still so young, apart from Graham McTavish.
Except for Graham McTavish. I still have dreams sometimes that we're back doing more pickups. I don't know what for, but it seems like it just kept continuing. And I guess some of us thought we might even be back the year after, before the third movie. But of course, a lot of that ended up CGI. They did a lot of motion capture, and we sort of weren't featured as much in the third. But yeah, it's just one of those things.
Well, I hope you get a chance to reconnect with some of those chaps sometime in 2023. And I hope we maybe get a chance to reconnect with you in person at some One Ring event in 2023. But it's really nice to reconnect with you on Zoom, and to know that you're busy and thriving, and to know that people can still find you online.
They can.
Despite of the hacking experience.
Yeah, just one of those things in life you have to deal with. You just got to, it's how you pick yourself up and keep moving, with a lot of things.
Think of Hugh Grant's Twitter handle, I think, is Hacked Off Hugh, after the hacking scandal there was in the UK. So
right, yes, yeah, and it's it's first world problems, right? You get hacked on your Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It's that's first world problems, really. I mean, there's a lot worse things that happen at sea. So
there are. Well, stay well, enjoy the sunshine and the beach and the warmth, and I'm not jealous at all.
I'm going to go and dust this painting, because it's disgraceful. I'm going to have to go do that right now.
It wasn't sharp on camera. You could have just pretended we'd never.
Awesome.
All right, take care, Stephen. It's really nice to see you.
Thanks, Kirsten. See you later. Bye. See you, everyone.